Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spiritist Philosophy for All. Today's topic is your thoughts create your destiny. We all have heard the concept of cause and effect, action and reaction. But if you like spirituality, you probably have heard as well the concept of reaping what we have sown. We reap what we sow. What does that mean is that when we plant a seed, that seed will germinate into a fruit. If I have sown seeds of orange, the only fruit I can reap are oranges. Well, our thoughts is exactly the same way. Our thoughts are seed in the soil of life. And it's very interesting to analyze our capability of thinking, of freedom of thought. Think for a moment. If you are sent to jail, guards can tell you when to sit, when to take a shower, when to eat. The judge can give you a long sentence. They can take your physical freedom away. But no one can tell you what to think. It is up here that we exercise 100% of our freedom, the freedom of thought. Yet, when we have a thought, we create a chain of reaction that will determine our destiny. When we have a thought, invariably that thought will create an emotion in us. So our emotions, they come from our thoughts. But after we had the emotion, most likely we will act based upon the emotion we had. So when we sow a thought, we reap an emotion. And by sowing an emotion, now we reap an action. So we started a pattern of thinking, feeling, and acting. Thinking, feeling, and acting. And by constantly repeating this pattern, that will be now the additional consequence of the sow and reap process. We will now reap a habit. What is a habit? A habit is actions that are not thought of. We have automized our way of behaving, and as a result, we are acting without giving any second thought. It became a habit, an automized action. And there are many different aspects of our lives that we have created habits for. It is well known the concept of being a slave to our habits, because we only attending to these automized actions or way of thinking. So now I am sowing thoughts, I'm reaping emotions, and I am reaping actions. And as if I am free when I created this pattern of behavior, and I became now as a slave of my own habits. The collection of our habits will now create our character. We are the sum of our habits. So it's easy to understand that if we have a sum of good habits, we have a healthy character from the emotional point of view. If we have a sum of unhealthy habits, our character is a result of that. Now that we are sowing a habit, what is it that we reap? We will reap our destiny. The collections of our habit shape our character, and our character creates our destiny. As you can see, where we arrive in life, who we became, is a direct result of our way of thinking. To break it down in a very simple way, our thoughts, they shape our emotions, they shape our actions, they shape our habits, they shape our character, and our character, they shape our destiny. Our destiny is the result of our thoughts. You are what you think, and where you arrive in life has to do with your way of thinking. It's easily to understand that by creating our thoughts, healthy, positive thoughts, we are shaping the course of our lives. By maintaining an attitude of always choosing to think what is best for us, we are definitely influencing our destiny. Whenever we have an emotion, usually we become slaves. We are enslaved by our emotions. We become slave of our habits. And it begs the question, why am I experiencing the same emotions over and over again? We must ask ourselves, what kind of thoughts are we choosing to be the mainstream of our thoughts, of our thinking pattern in our mind? You've heard the concept before of someone seeing the glass half full or half empty. Well, I know people that not only they see the glass half empty, they actually have broken the glass. That's how negative these people are. Everybody they're in touch with, everything that they do, they see negativity everywhere. It is not to surprise anyone then that all these negative things happen to them, because we receive what we ask. And if my thoughts, through my way of thinking, I'm constantly asking for trouble, for misery, it is exactly what life is going to give to me. Now, who is in charge of your thoughts? Is it you or someone else? Do you allow others to shape your way of thinking? We live in a society in which it tells us what happiness is supposed to be for us. We allow society to make these choices. And if we're not doing what society told us to do in order to experience the emotion of happiness, we are unhappy. Society tells us that we must have money to be happy. No one is advocating that we should be poor to be happy. But one fact is that money alone cannot make us happy. There are different aspects of our lives that we must attend to in order for us to have happiness. If I allow society to dictate to me that I must have money in order to be happy, I will produce that thought, I will create the emotion, and I could surround my entire life in amassing materialistic things around me, yet I still feel very unhappy. It is to no surprise that people who are financially sound are more prone to committing suicide. We usually associate money with being happy. And if that was true, the opposite of that, not having money, means being unhappy. And feeling the epitome of unhappiness is one to commit suicide. So if money equals happiness, we should find suicide rates very high in poor countries. But that's not what we find. Statistically speaking, wealthy countries are more prone to have people committing suicide. Suicide rates are higher in wealthy countries than poor countries. I am not saying that money is making people commit suicide. What I'm saying is that money alone cannot make us happy. There are other factors that should be present to complete our happiness. Complete happiness is not possible, but a relative state of happiness is possible. And we should have our finances guaranteed, but not make our finances the priority of our physical existence. So, if you are thinking that your whole life should be about amassing things, you should give a consideration in reading about this topic in the internet to see that the rate of people who commit suicide is way higher amongst the wealthy than poor people. That will definitely change your destiny. There's a big probability that what you have as of now, it is sufficient in order to add to the other aspects of your life for you to feel blissful. But if your way of thinking is distorting your emotion, you will create a very unpleasant destiny for you. If you don't like your destiny, ask yourself the question, what kind of character you build for yourself? What kind of habits do you have? What kind of actions you are doing? What kind of emotions you're experiencing? And most importantly, what kind of thoughts are you having? You have the freedom to choose what you think. But once you have chosen what to think, that will create your destiny. Do not allow a materialistic society to dictate to you what you should think. You should read and learn from wise individuals who have attained a state of peacefulness. And these individuals can also be very rich, but they are not possessed by the things that they have. There's a big difference here. Having possessions and being possessed by the things that we have. If I am a slave of this concept of must have things to be happy, well, I don't have things. The things have me. And once I arrive at this destiny society told me to have, which is being rich, and yet I still feel empty. I still experience an emotional void inside me. That should at least make me think that money alone cannot guarantee my happiness. There are other factors that I must attend to. The social aspect of my life, the family aspect of my life, my physical aspect of my life, my spiritual aspect. All these different aspects must receive equal attention from us so we can have balance. In this way of thinking, I will create healthy emotions, which will lead me to positive actions, good habits, a healthy character, and a destiny that I am satisfied with. You are the creator of your life in that sense, because what you choose to think determines who you become. It is true that we cannot go back in our past and change what already occurred. But all of us have the power to change our present so we have a different future. And what is the first thing that we're going to do to change our present? Change our way of thinking. Because when I have arrived at the conclusion that I must change the way I think, there will be a chain reaction that will go all the way to my destiny, shaping it for the better, creating the happiness that I envisioned in my mind. Your positive thoughts will lead you to a pleasant destiny. But let me just remind you that a pleasant destiny, a happy destiny, is not a destiny free of problems. As long as we exist, we will have problems. Because usually what we label as problems are nothing but challenges that invites us to leave our status quo and progress to the next step of our evolution. We label these difficult moments as problems or as if life is against us. But these are opportunities to awaken the potential within us. Our producer Marcio is telling us that we have here 2 questions, and these questions are from abroad. This is very interesting. This is Mr. K. Taylor, and he wrote to us from Melbourne, Australia. Taylor asked, "How can I change my thoughts?" Taylor, thank you so much for watching our show, Spiritist Philosophy for All, and we hope that you enjoy our future episodes. Taylor, to change our thoughts, we should change a couple of things in our lives. The things that we do, the places that we go, and even people that we choose to hang out with, our friends, they influence our way of thinking. If I like to watch movies that are empty in cultural content, movies that bring me a negative message about life in general, movies that make me become a skeptic individual towards everyone, that movie is influencing the way I think. If I watch, if I read anything that is depressive in content, those movies and books, magazines are influencing the way I think. So if I make a decision that I need to change my way of thinking, I should change what I watch. I should change what I read, because those materials influence our way of thinking. Our visual content the visual content that we watch is very powerful to shape our perception of life. We see one bad news, or we watch the news, and let me remind you that unfortunately the news pass on most of it of negative news, because negative news sells. There are equal number of positive things, if not more, happening all the time. But that doesn't call for any attention. Goodness does not beg for attention. Bad news does, and it sells. This is why we see the news on TV, and most of them are negative, because it sells. So if I watch those news constantly, that shapes my perception of life. It makes me generalize the entire world if the entire world is breaking down into pieces. There are many problems happening right now. Yet, there are many good things happening right now. But if I only have eyes to see the negative, then that will create negative thoughts that will lead me to an unpleasant destiny. So I suggest that you should change what you read and what you watch. But also, it's It's very important, the people that we choose to be with. There are people who are acquaintances, people who just say hello and good morning, or someone at our job. It is not someone that partake in our intimacy or is a family member. These are acquaintances, and they make less of a damage in our lives. But if I have people who are around me, who I call friends, and these individuals are engaged in negative behavior. And what are negative behaviors? Behaviors that are unhealthy to our mind, to our emotions, and to our bodies. If they are engaged in these unhealthy behaviors, those negative behaviors will influence the way I think. Up until a point that I will start doing exactly what they're doing. These influences are very subtle in nature. We don't perceive them coming. Before you know it, by surrounding yourself with negativity, you are doing negativity yourself. If you surround with people who are doing positive things, you are more prone to start doing those things as well. Now, who has the freedom to choose who we want to hang out with? We do. So out of wisdom, I want to choose positive people to be around. Positive people that will influence me to do positive things. It is my duty to select what kind of influence I want to have in my life. If I consciously or unconsciously surround myself by people who are engaged in harmful activities towards themselves and towards other people, I will end up doing exactly what they're doing. And then there is the third factor of where our thoughts come from. Our thoughts can also come from places we go to. If you are in a school, what are people doing at a school? Most people, not all of them, but most people are engaged in learning something. That becomes a sort of a healthy environment to us. If I go into a library, what are people doing at a library? They are engaged in some sort of a healthy behavior, at least most of them. So if I walk into that environment, I am choosing to be influenced by positive behaviors, which will create in me a pleasant destiny. If I choose other places to go to where people are engaged in self-destructive behavior, before you know it, unconsciously, very subtle, we become engaged in those behaviors as well. Now, who is responsible for choosing the places we go to? We are. We are responsible for choosing where we go, people that we hang out with, and books and movies that we watch. But since this program is called Spiritist Philosophy for All, there is a fourth element of influence, which are spirits. What are spirits? Spirits are people like you and I who are no longer in their body. The term that we use is disincarnate, meaning out of the flesh. They are thinking beings just like you and I, and they are continuing to exist with their same habits that they had before they left this biological vehicle. And these thinking entities, these individuals who are in a different vibrational state of our physical reality, they continue to influence people the way they did when they were in their physical flesh. In other words, there are thinking beings who influence us to do things that it pleases them. So when you have a thought that you are for certain that this thought continues in your head as if it is an obsession, is a thought that you can't control, this can be a spiritual entity that is influencing you to do negative things. We choose what kind of spiritual influence we're going to have by the thoughts that we choose to have. Remember, I can choose what kind of thoughts I want to have. But once I have a thought, I will be attracting a thinking entity, a spirit of the same kind of thoughts I am having. By thinking of positive thoughts, I will be attracting near my way of thinking spiritual entities that wants to engage in positive behaviors, in positive thinking, in progress, in evolution. If I think of negative thoughts, that will lead me to emotional disturbances. It will lead me to a miserable destiny. Even if you don't believe in the reality of the spiritual world, it's not a problem. The problem is that you realize that our thoughts should be constantly be reconsidered so we can understand and, most importantly, engage in new behavior in case our way of thinking is not working for us. If you're happy with who you are, if you're happy with your achievements, it could probably mean that you have healthy thoughts. But if you are unhappy with your destiny, if you're miserable with who you are, then it could be that you have created this reality with your own way of thinking. By changing what you think, you change who you become. By changing who you become, you create a new destiny for you. We invite you not to believe a word that we say, but to ponder about them. Think about them, rationalize about them, and if you want to get more in depth into this material, we suggest you read the Spiritist book. This is a collection of teachings of wise individuals who step foot on this planet, ranging from poets, philosophers, scientists, men of states. They have written their knowledge, and this individual, Allan Kardec, who was a French educator, compiled this information, in other words, put together all these knowledges into a single book. And the book is entitled The Spiritist Book because the information came from these individuals. Their lessons live on. Don't believe it. Think it. Rationalize it. Ponder it. And you will arrive at your own conclusions. And one conclusion that you might arrive is that we need to change the way we think. We need to change the way we look at ourselves. And by changing the way we think, by changing the way we look at ourselves, we see that our destiny is not just about amassing material things. We're not here just to make money. It's part of it for our material needs. But our biggest and most important mission is to improve ourselves intellectually and morally. And then, and only then, we'll all experience what we crave so much for, peace and happiness in our lives. Thank you for your attention.